Former Constitutional Court Judge Albie Sachs has just published a book called We the People. In it, Sachs talks about the country's renewed faith in the Constitution following the landmark Nkandla ruling. He joins us now in studio. Justice, thanks very much for your time today. It's really fantastic to have you with us. And it is such a wide-ranging book, so we're going to try and hone in on some of the issues that you covered in it. But let's go right back to the beginning. I imagine it all begins with a kind of attack of conscience where you decide you're not going to take the easy path. You're going to take the principled, difficult path. What persuaded you to make that decision?
I was born into it. At the age of 6, during World War II. I got a birthday card from my dad. Albert, my son, may you grow up to be a soldier in the fight for liberation. But I couldn't bear my parents assuming I'd automatically follow in their footsteps. And when I met a young crowd at the University of Cape Town, it was in the 1950s, period of great turmoil, yes, I was ready. I joined the Defiance of Unjust Laws campaign. I went to the Congress of the People, and these were marvelous moments, and they just had a vision of what we could be in South Africa, and it was continuous. Then the question was, should I join or not? Would I have the courage to hold on there?
And where does the courage come from? I mean, I'm thinking of Nelson Mandela's statement that it's not the absence of fear, it's overcoming it. How do you do that?
We were living with dread all the time, but we were part of a movement, and the justice aspect was so big, and also the sense of belonging to a community. I'm getting out of my tight white skin and I'm learning to sing, my boy, my boy, my boy, and then volunteers obey the orders, volunteers, and joining the Defiance of Unjust Laws campaign, and I'm growing with the struggle, with the movement, and seeing what South Africa could be. And it was so much more interesting than the rather boring and predictable white society, you know, of a young guy growing up expected to be manly and so on.
I want to jump forward to that moment, that weekend at Nkandla's house in Dublin, when you sat at that table with him and you generated what has become the basis for our constitution today. When you hammered out the framework of that constitution, I mean, did you know at that point that it was going to form the basis of a document so central to our democracy?
In March 1988, I still had 2 arms, and my task under the leadership of Oliver Tambo was to explain why we needed a Bill of Rights in South Africa. And I said we needed it because we look good. We needed it because it's the answer to group rights. We don't have group rights. We have people, freedom for everybody, and no one is oppressed, not because you're majority or minority, but or black or white, because you're a human being. And 3, I said we need a Bill of Rights against ourselves, because we'd lived in countries where people had fought heroically for freedom and often gone on to become very authoritarian. Then I'm blown up. I come out of hospital. Oliver Tambo encourages the Constitutional Committee to fly to London for my first meeting out of hospital, and then I'm asked, will I, with Kader Asmal, help draft the first Bill of Rights for democratic South Africa. Talk about a pinch me moment. Now we're not denouncing apartheid, and we just knew this is looking forward now. We're going to get this in our Constitution. The Freedom Charter was there, but it was kind of goals that we wanted. What about an operational, functional mechanism that will enable people to have rights? And I sat down at Kader's kitchen table. I always thought it was a wooden table, but his wife Louise says it was
plastic.
It was plastic, yes. And I said, just a piece of paper and a pen, no books.
That's important.
The Bill of Rights has got to come from inside. It's got to proclaim itself, all those fundamental things that make a human being. And I wrote it down. And afterwards we checked, and they were all there.
That interests me so much, because we look at the Constitution as a fairly clinical document in post-democracy South Africa. But that moment of origin is a moment of real heart and conscience, isn't it?
You know, it was intended to help my recovery, and it was worth all the medicines and the physiotherapy. Imagine asking a young lawyer, a freedom fighter, to help draft for the Constitutional Committee, for Oliver Tambo, the first Bill of Rights. And we knew it was a momentous moment. And you know, when I was blown up and I discovered I survived that moment every freedom fighter's waiting for, and I got through, I knew as I got better, my country would get better with a total conviction, and that's what happened.
You know, that's an amazing thing. You've referred to it so much now, but the 7th of April 1988 is the date of the attack. What do you remember of what happened on that day?
I remember it was the day of Mozambican Women. I'm going to the beach in the morning, meetings in the afternoon, and blah, just total darkness. And I don't know what's happening. I think I'm being kidnapped, and I thought I'm going to end up in prison in South Africa. And a voice in the darkness speaking Portuguese says, "Albie, this is Eva Gorido. You're in Maputo Central Hospital. Your arm is in a lamentable condition. You must face the future with courage." And I said into the darkness what happened, and a woman's voice said it was a car bomb. I fainted back into the obscurity, but with joy, because I knew I was safe.
Explain that joy. I mean, many people in that situation would severely regret the loss of an arm, wouldn't understand how they're going to enter into life with this disability.
It's part of the project. We called ourselves revolutionaries. We put ourselves on the line. We're waiting. Will they come for me? Will they come for me today? If they come, will I be brave? Will I get through? They'd come for me. They tried to kill me, and I'd survived. I'd only lost an arm, and I felt joyous. People who are a little less romantic than I am say that it's actually part of the effect of the anesthetics. It gives you a certain high, whatever the reason. And to be quite candid, I went into exile very defeated after solitary confinement, sleep deprivation, partially breaking under interrogation, feeling very down, go to Mozambique, and I'm lifted up again by the Spirit there, and the bomb blew away all the sadness. I've just felt buoyant since 1988. And look what we've got. We've got a country, we've got a constitution, we've got this amazing constitutional court, lots of terrible things in this country, quite unacceptable, but we've got the mechanisms to deal with it.
I want to go back and ask, after your accident and after you had recovered, I mean, several years later, as the TRC was about to resume, or was about to start, you met the man who tried to kill you. What was that moment like?
He telephoned me. I'm now Justice Albie Sachs, and I said he can come up to my chambers. And he said he's going to the TRC. And I opened the security door and I looked. He's younger than me, he's tall and thin. And I see in his eyes, so this is the man I tried to kill. He sees in my eyes, this is the man who tried to kill me. We didn't fight over anything. We didn't even know each other, but he was on that side, I was on this side. And I still remember as we walked to my chambers, he's striding like a soldier, and I try and slow him down with my best judge's ambulation. We talk, and eventually I say, "Henry, I've got to get on with my work." He stands up. I said, "Normally I shake the hand of someone when I say goodbye. I can't shake your hand. But go to the Truth Commission, tell them what you know, who knows maybe." And when he went back, he was now shuffling along. And 6 months later, I'm at a party, end of the year. It was Isidingo, and they had made a film about one of the very few soldiers who went to the TRC. Anyway, I hear a voice saying, "Albie, I can't believe it, it's Henry." And he's beaming, and he comes up to me, and the band is playing loudly. We get into a corner, and he said, "I went to the Truth Commission. I spoke to Bobby and Sue and Farouk, people in exile with me. He's calling me Albie, and you said," and Henry, I said, "I've only got your face to tell me what you're saying is the truth." I put out my hand, and I shook his hand. He went away beaming. I almost fainted. But I heard afterwards he suddenly left the party, and the story is he went home and he cried for 2 weeks. I hope it's true. Sending him to jail wouldn't do anything. But when I got a letter in hospital recovering saying, "Don't worry, Comrade Albie, we will avenge you," I thought, what, we're going to cut off the arms? Blind in one eye, is that what we're fighting for? If we get democracy, if we get freedom, if we get justice, that will be my soft vengeance. Roses and lilies will grow out of my arm. And that's been soft vengeance, that theme of my life since then. The court, wonderful building next to the old Fort Prison, an amazing constitution. That's all soft vengeance. It's getting our ideals realized in practice. And I've been invited recently, I was in Colombia, to introduce them to the topic of self-vengeance. They're trying to get a peace agreement. I've been to Sri Lanka after the Tamil Tigers were crushed very mercilessly. How can they have forms of reconciliation? Other countries are interested to learn from our experience. You don't just say, oh, it doesn't matter, let's move on, forget the past. You remember the past, but you transform negativity into positivity. And that's what our Constitution has done and what our court has been doing all the time.
You know, it's interesting that you say we should not be longing for a new Mandela-like figure to lead us miraculously out of our problems. As before, what is needed is an immense amount of hard work, a huge amount of hard talking by hundreds and thousands of people. And maybe this is what the United States is going through right now, realizing they don't all want the leader who's been elected, but it's going to be left to the ordinary people to make the difference, to make the change that needs to.
We need leadership. We need good, honest leadership. But Mandela wasn't a messiah. He was the head of a team. He was a great listener. He actually didn't contribute very much to the text of the Constitution. In fact, the one thing he put his personal stamp on, we rejected, and that was voting for 16, 17-year-olds. I went 3 times to say, the Constitutional Committee says no. Oh, he was very, very upset. He could be quite patrician. Years later, he pointed that out as an error on his part, that presidents can be wrong. But he was a wonderful figure of stability and thoughtfulness that helped to steer the whole project. Now we're in a different phase. Now we've got the Constitution, we've got our rights, we've got the vote, we've got a free press, we've got wonderful judges, the court's working, public protector. We've got to use the rights that we've won to get the society we want in the country that we've helped to build.
I've got to end by asking you about this. This is also one of the most poetic extracts of the book. Having resisted the bullets and bombs of lead, we now face the bullets and bombs of sugar, and slowly we succumb to their sweetness. Is it possible that, resulting from the deprivation that results from being an anti-apartheid fighter, the loss of years, the loss of family life, that this greed, this corruption among some was inevitable?
I think it was inevitable that a number of people would succumb to it, because sugar is sweet and people are tired, and many people feel now it's our turn. You know, we've suffered, but it's such a violation of what we were struggling for. It's such an undermining. Somebody said, and he was hammered for it, we didn't fight to be poor. That's true, but we didn't fight to be rich. We fought to be free. We've got that freedom. We must honor the freedom, and we must honor the integrity and the vision of people like Oliver Tambo and Albert Luthuli before him. I was a soldier of Luthuli when I was very, very young, and then I became a lieutenant, or maybe I'm promoting myself, a sergeant of Tambo. And that's much richer. You can have the cars, and you can have the farms, and you can have the shares. That doesn't count. That doesn't count in comparison with that sense of joy and freedom of building a new society and of seeing a new generation coming ahead and benefiting from the things that we fought for.
Justice Albie Sachs, what a pleasure and honor talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in to speak to us today. Albie Sachs is a former Constitutional Court judge and anti-apartheid fighter. He's also the author of We the People, Insights of an Activist Judge. Do get hold of it. It's a fantastic read.